Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the Gridiron Glory here with Will and Tad, where we discuss all things, all 32 teams in the NFL. We have an exciting January football week 18 special episode here with the Colts and the Jaguars, where we will go through their end of the season and discuss their week 18 matchup, which saw the Colts an overtime victory 26 to 23. The Colts they go to 8-9 on the year, and they will obviously not be in the playoffs, finishing one game behind. And with that said, they will be getting the 14th pick in the draft. The Jaguars falling to 4 and 13. They will pick number 5 overall in the NFL draft. So, two very different teams in different phases of their franchise. I'm looking at the Colts. I mean, you have the interesting quarterback dynamic with Joe Flacco finishing out the season, doing what he does, getting that overtime win, driving for the field goal, a legacy drive, you might say, one of the last times you'll see Joe Flacco in a starting situation. So if that was the last game he'll start, I mean that's a beautiful way to sunset his career. But your franchise quarterback, he wasn't a factor in this game. Anthony Richardson, he's been up and down. He's been injured. He's been inconsistent. He's been tired. Um, all sorts of things. I mean, with Anthony Richardson, I think the Colts, if they want to give Anthony Richardson a chance, they just need to commit to him at this point. Just see if he can be the guy.
They need to commit to him. They need to see if he can be the guy. Obviously he did have that one moment early in the season. I mean, it's so crazy because like I don't want to take away from all the good things that he's done as well. I mean, he's done so many great. I mean, Anthony Richards, he kind of had an imperfect moment, and you just don't want to see that again from him. But outside of that, he's the franchise guy. You're right.
I mean, he's the franchise guy. He's the guy that they drafted very highly, and I mean, they got to see it out. They got to see if this thing can work. They have to find out because right now they don't know. They're to the point where they don't know for sure if he can be the guy that can lead their franchise into the future, and that's a scary spot to be when you have a team like this. I mean, you have a star running back like Jonathan Taylor, a top tier running back in the league, and yeah, where would you rank Jonathan Taylor amongst running backs?
I love that you asked me that because when healthy, Jonathan Taylor to me is easily a top three running back in the NFL.
A top three running back in the NFL. There you have it.
At least on the current 2024 season.
Yeah, for this season, I mean, he's been incredible. He's had some big moments, and I mean, this is a player that you can build your offense around, but you still have to be competent at the quarterback position. And I mean, they're still figuring that
Colts
out.
to me are
Um,
like the Cardinals of the AFC. They're the Colts are a weird. They're in a weird like we were talking about the Cardinals and like kind of the weird scenario they're in. It's kind of the same vibe with the Colts.
I feel like Kyler's a bit more established than Anthony Richardson, but I definitely get the picture you're framing here. I mean, they have an interesting roster. They built and
Michael
now
Pittman
they're
Jr.
they're here competing. They have Michael Pittman Jr. They have some receivers, but it's just they've behind Richardson, they've just had a hard time building a passing offense. And if they want to compete, he's going to need to develop as a passer. I mean, more consistently. He's going to need to be a more consistent passer. And I mean, they have
Yeah,
a fairly solid offensive line. They have this is a fairly solid football team. I mean, make no mistake. This is a team that has potential. They just have a lot of things they need to figure out.
they have a lot of things they need to figure out. They have a lot of things that I mean, they're on the cusp. They're on the cusp. They're on the brink. Like what? It's just like, what do you need to do to get there now?
I mean, you got a lot of good veterans on this defense. Obviously, guys like DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, the NFL's tackle leader for 2024, is on this roster. So
Yes, the
you do
tackle
have
guys
some
are awesome
veterans. And I mean, there's still some things you could build. I mean, What if you're the Colts? Like, what are you looking at to build in the offseason? Like, what would you think
I
about
mean,
for like free agency?
mentioned it yourself. You
Yeah,
need to develop Anthony Richardson more as a passer. You definitely probably need to go out here. I mean, you got some guys up there on that front seven like DeForest Buckner. I mean, we mentioned him time and time again.
sure.
You got guys like even like Julian Blackman, Jalen Jones, Zaire Franklin. So just I mean, there's talent here. I don't know if this just comes down to more so, okay, maybe it's just a coaching developmental thing. It's can Jonathan? I mean, Jonathan. I mean, what more can you ask out of Jonathan Taylor? 34 carries, 170. Like, what more can you ask? Like,
Yeah.
you can't. It can't just all be on Jonathan Taylor to win these games. I mean, yeah, you win this game, but against a very bad Jacksonville Jaguars team who's 4-13, who had Mac Jones going at quarterback and Tad, it does not seem that Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. I mean, what's your thoughts on the future of Jacksonville?
I mean, they're tied to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, he's their number one pick, and I mean, he's the player that they see a future around Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's had a rough time. He hasn't been healthy enough the last 2 years, but I mean, he's been in the playoffs. He's had some moments, and I feel like they need to see it out with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I still think he'll be the guy. You got to do some building around him. You definitely have to focus on perhaps drafting him either offensive line to help keep him healthy, perhaps consider drafting on defense. I mean, there's a lot of different ways Jacksonville could go if you're looking at the draft. I mean, there's going to be players available at number 5 that can help this franchise.
There's going to be players available at number 5 that can help that franchise. I mean, you got some pretty. I mean, to be honest, kind of like I, Travis Etienne Jr. kind of fell off a little bit this year, and to me, in the running back room, who really stepped up was Tank Bigsby. I was really impressed by Tank Bigsby this season amidst a 4-13 season, and also Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I mean that's the one offensive player that you have some momentum around. You can build around him. But yeah, I mean they focused more on Tank Bigsby than on ETN this year. I mean he had more carries. And they limited the carries for ETN this year. It was really interesting to see why they did that. I mean I'm not entirely sure. And I mean Bigsby he had some big moments. I mean living up to his name there, but I don't know. That's really interesting. What's the future of that running back room? And I mean, do you consider like perhaps looking at another running back in the draft? I don't know if that's something they want to look at or if they want to look in free agency. But I mean,
I mean, also the Jaguars did decide to fire Doug Peterson, their head coach. So that's also another big storyline going into the offseason for this franchise for Jacksonville. They did fire Doug Peterson. So you got a vacancy at the head coaching spot, a big question mark.
a big question mark there. And I mean, just gonna be interesting to see what they do on there, what they do on defense. Can they continue to improve their defense? You got some young pieces like Walker, Trevon Walker. He's was the number one overall pick in 2022. Now he's entering, obviously, this was his third season. And I mean, he had a career high 10 and a half sacks, a career high 621 total tackles. So some momentum there. And can he continue to develop and be the disruptive force he was drafted to be 3 years ago?
Yeah, can he still be that destructive force? Can he still be that guy? I mean, I'm just like, I don't know. It's just the Jaguars are in a state of disarray right now. And I just would say that the biggest thing, I mean, more so than anything, is you need a solid head coach first.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they've had some struggles
You
in the
thought
coaching.
Doug Peterson was gonna be that guy. He had the experience, you know, as an NFL head coach. Maybe Doug Peterson could be like a coordinator or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe the Jags go out and get a Bill Belichick or something like that. Jokingly, but still.
Yeah, I mean they got to figure something out. They got to get somebody that can stick around and hopefully show that he can be that guy.
Yeah, so Colts win over the Jaguars 26-23. It was a fun game. Did you really have any other final thoughts? Or
I just want to say one more time, if this is it for Joe Flacco, what a career for the guy. Definitely an
yeah,
unquestionably elite quarterback.
no doubt about it. And yes, Tad, I would like to humbly, personally, sincerely, tremendously, from the bottom of my heart, with all my heart, where would you rank Joe Flacco amongst quarterbacks all time?
I mean, Joe Flacco, he had that incredible postseason run where he's got a Super Bowl and nobody can ever take that away from him. He's that if you can go on a run like that, then you're a true legend of the sport. What what's your final lasting take on Joe Flacco?
Just a guy who, to be honest, Tad, you don't feel like Joe Flacco. You feel like Joe Flacco wasn't. He was just in it to play football and have fun more than anything else. Like he's the kind of quarterback to me that reminded me like, you know, you go out, you like he just went out there and he just had fun, you know, and he was just
He just
himself.
had fun. I'll
And
always think about
he
that
was good
run
at
he
what he
had.
did. He was very good at what he did in his prime.
Very good. I'll always think of how he came off his couch last year to resurrect the Browns, get them into the
Yeah,
playoffs, win a playoff game. And I mean he didn't have to come back. He could have just been done. He could have just called it a career, but he decides, yeah, I'll come back, give it one last ride. And I just want to say a guy like Joe Flacco, that's just a really fun player to watch.
well, I mean, and that just shows his love of the game right there. I mean, he plays for the love of football. He goes
For the
out
love of
there,
football.
he's good at what he does because he loves football that much, and it's beautiful.
Unquestionably elite.
So, you know,
Well,
a very swell guy, Joe Flacco overall.
very swell guy, and we'll see what the future holds for him if he wants to come back for one more year or if this is it. But with that being said, thank you all for watching the Gridiron Glory. Please continue to like, subscribe, and follow our content into Super Wild Card Weekend and beyond as we tell the story of the NFL playoffs. Thanks for watching.